Hello, good evening. Today's session is an input on accessible sports facilities for persons with disabilities. Now, I have a few um, images and a guidance note from Sports England to share with you and to explain um, the requirements for persons with disabilities in terms of the sports facilities. So I'm going to share some screen. Um, Now I went to Guangzhou in 2014, and they had a, some sports event that is international in nature. Um, Before that, in Guangzhou, and they try to accommodate facilities for persons with disabilities. We can see here there is the usual access to enter the pool using steps, and also for this set of rails, the into the swimming pool for competition, and this set of rails is actually to access into the pool with a wheelchair. As you enter, you slowly submerge into the deeper water and eventually get into the pool. We'll stop share there, and we'll go to another screen to show this guidance note. The design guidance note from Sports England is very informative and would give you some points to consider when you think about accessible sport facilities. Now, when we talk about sports and sports for disabled person, there are certain categories that relate to um, disabled persons that they can participate in. It relates to the Paralympics, obviously. When we talk about sports facilities, we talk about training in order to compete. When we talk about also sports facilities, we can talk about recreational activities, um, not for competition, but for fun and to get our cardiovascular um, effect to make us feel better or be healthier and so on. So that includes exercising as well, walking around, jogging, and so on. So for persons with disabilities, they have limited ability in a sense that they may not be able to see or hear, some sensory issues or physical issues or mobility, and then they could be weaker in terms of trying to carry things and throw a ball or something. But of course, to compete, there is a level that they have to achieve, obviously, in order to compete. So I would leave it to my friends or my colleagues from sports and exercise science at University of Malaya, such as Professor Madya Dr. Selina Koo and uh, Dr. Awing, aka Isa, and to explain all those things. But when I look at this accessible sports facility guidance notes at chapter number 7 on changing areas, I definitely go to here because this is something that I'm concerned with. But for a sportsman or sportswoman who happen to be disabled, their concerns are much more holistic or much more bigger and complex than what I'm concerned with, obviously. That is why that we need to actually understand their needs. This is a very preliminary input that I think that could assist looking through these guidance notes, and it will help in our doing our checklist as well. But um, input on on the um, on the general requirements of different sports facility. Like there's so many, I can't name them all, but even the general ones like basketball, badminton, soccer, they have something called go ball for blind participants, and that have to have a certain thing that is required. Um, and when I went through this guidance notes, in a corridor, for example, you have to consider two wheelchair users using the corridor. And if they were to use wheelchairs that are sports wheelchairs, the dimensions are wider than the usual dimensions that we use for a regular wheelchair like the one I'm using. And I noticed 1.2 meters is the opening of the door, not 900 millimeters. Yeah, 1,200 millimeters, which is 4 feet, is the opening that you should accommodate for door openings for people using sports wheelchairs, because their wheels are more spread, and that's for one person to go into. But the corridor, they recommend to be minimum 1,800 millimeters or 1.8 meters. That was something that I found in this guidance note. You can't find it in Malaysian standard, because obviously Malaysian standard is more for public buildings and in general, not for sports building. So with regard to accessible sports facilities that we'd like to go into, changing areas, I'm not going to go too long in this either, but changing areas, I've been here before where you actually have shower with other people. Here you have the dimensions of this changing locker area, and the one you have at one point in the locker area, you know, 1.5 diameter in the maneuvering space, or 1.5 or 1.5 square here. And the entrance into the shower is 1 meter, and there's fall, and you actually have people showering with the regular showers. And number one, a robust 500 by 500 shower drop down seat with horizontal and vertical grab bars in the corner here, to keep grab rail, sorry, to give extra support to users. So you have in the corner for somebody to actually have a grip on this grab bar as well and transfer themselves to this seat, drop down seat. I prefer not a drop down seat, but a concrete seat. But this is something that is quite culturally, you have to consider cultural acceptance as well. In Malaysia, people would be more modest they wouldn't have shared showers. I don't know, I've never been to, I've been at the age of 12 in a camp in America, and it is a different culture, you see. So in Malaysia, I don't often see this, and we saw changing rooms with cubicles. So this is an example of if you were to shower with other people. Now, there are some things here that you could take into account, even though that is culturally not acceptable, but you need to also understand about the level threshold between changing and shower areas, for example, so that there is no water ponding going back into the changing area or the dry area. And there's even a minimum 300 millimeter clear, but of course 500 millimeter clear at number 6 from the door leading to the edge of wall, so the door swing inside, and this edge is necessary if you want to open the door easily. So much of the opening is 1 meter, 1 meter for, it's no more 900, but 1 meter is a minimum for sports wheelchair. As we go along, we see main changing areas, layout. Here's some points about that. A well-designed layout is critical to achieving maximum accessibility. Careless design can reduce a person's independence, at worst, physically prevent using use of a facility. Number one, sufficient space provided for wheelchair user to maneuver, allowance for wheelchair user to change without obstructing other users, direct access provided the shower area from the changing room. Now, this is very important that there is direct access because you can't have other people watching you. You have to go out to the corridor, obviously. Toilet provision is in very close proximity to the changing area. So this is the process that people do. Um, so space, how to arrange a space. Um, yeah, so here they also allowed for privacy of an individual cubicle, and wherever possible, these should be provided. Um, yeah, the individual accessible changing cubicle or cubicles within the main team changing area, which can double up as a family changing to allow personal privacy within the team context. Okay, so obviously, being a non-sports person, but expect I'm interested in football or soccer in the US. I know about team changing rooms, and in team sports, people have to be close together. So you have the team spirit. So you have to include person with disability in the team changing room. So um, so this guideline trying to assist in getting as much points to see the different complexities, the different needs as much as possible. It's a good set of guidance, but you need to actually, when you apply it in the context of your culture and the way you go and use the space, acceptable cultural norms, they say, then you design for that culture where contextually is acceptable. Benches, but the benches are something that is what they call quite similar. The guidance that you have here is similar to what you have in Malaysia. Um, and you have coat hooks, shower wheelchairs, self-propelled shower wheelchairs should be readily available. These are essential for use in the showers and other wet areas. So you wouldn't want to use your sports wheelchair or your wheelchair that you normally use from day to day. So some wheelchairs should be available for you to use to go into the shower. These are essential for use in other wet areas and access to the swimming pool. So this is something like a SOP, standard operating procedure. The processes need to be understood how a disabled sports person would want to use the spaces. So in facilities where there is a hoist-assisted large changing room and several shower wheelchairs are provided, one should be the Como type for use with the WC. This is really getting serious business when you think about people who are severely disabled involved in sports as well. So I'm still limited in what kind of sports, but this is serious. Should be enough floor space to enable the user to transfer from their own wheelchair into the shower chair. A suitably designed space should be provided within all changing areas for safe, convenient, and secure storage of shower chairs and personal. So you want more and more people with disabilities to be joining in and becoming sports person. So how Malaysia would think about including more people in more training facilities is what it's all about. So we're talking about hoists here, and so obviously you have the choice. Really, you don't have to go and. I'm thinking about myself that I don't have a choice. I have a choice to use a hoist rather than transfer myself and risking myself to fall if I use a shower wheelchair, for example. And they talk about different types of hoists and where is located the tracks for the hoist, such as the ceiling track hoist and the mobile hoist. They talk about the lockers on the left, and slings to do with the hoist, hair dryer, mirror, unisex unisex accessible changing provision. The minimum provision for accessible changing is indicated in Table 8. However, consideration should be given to the provision of additional spaces to meet likely demand. Generally, unisex accessible changing facilities should be provided in addition to other accessible provision, which is a dedicated accessible changing areas allowing a helper from either sex to provide assistance in privacy. Each room needs to contain a tip-up seat, shower, WC, and wash basin, and meet the dimensional criteria set out in Figure 16. Unisex accessible changing rooms should be clearly signposted, and the layout should also be accessible. And larger unisex accessible changing rooms as well. So the bigger the facility, maybe accommodating to more choice and for different abilities of sportsmen and women who are disabled. So here we have Figure 16 that was mentioned earlier. And when you look at Figure 16, you have shower facilities and toilet facilities in one space, 2.4 meters by 2.5 meters to accommodate a shower facility that has curtains. And we've discussed this before in our class about the seating and where the shower head should be and where the, what do you call it, the floor trap to drain out the water and later for the minimum 1.5 millimeter space. And as far as possible, the WC should be as far as possible from the shower area, because when you transfer yourself, if the area is wet, you can slip and fall. And so this is an example of a unisex accessible changing room. And you can see the key relating to all these numbers here relating to what it is that you need to, the specification or the guidance need to have. And right. There's also a choice here to look at the possibility of having number 14 here, a 600 millimeter deep fixed seat bench with a rounded corner and soft round edges. We have different bodies, and some of us can't be using the tip up of the flip down shower seat with back rest. I mean, I don't usually like those things. I prefer the fixed bench, which looks more sturdy. And in this case, the shower hose should be nearby. Number 3 is fixed vertical rail. 9, yeah, it should be near the bench for me to shower as well. And this is to illustrate how the design is in a plan form. The guidance note also show other possibility of design when it comes to a longer design, like 2.2 meters by 2.7 is the longer side. And you could have a changing room with shower and a fixed bench. And in the changing room area, 50, you can put the mirror. So how do you keep it dry is one thing. It's possible to keep it dry, and to sit on the seat with a deep bench. I'm just thinking, when looking at the plan, how actually that I could be changing in it. I never actually tried to use something like this before. So figure 18. So I'm just thinking at the moment how to actually utilize this facility. Yeah, this one's really big. This one for sure I can change in here. Um, this is a unisex changing places facility where assisted change is to be provided. Not only I can have an assistant help me change, but also it's big, 3 meters by 4 meters. I can go to the toilet here and wash basin. Um, so, you know, when you think about this is a much drier place than the one earlier where it could be wet if there's a shower, but because they have the curtain, I assume that at the bench I could be dry. This is a possible good layout because in our culture we like to use water a lot. So um, so that's one of the things that I'm conscious of all the time. And that could be for that design just now could be for hotel rooms. Well, actually, but there's huge space to put in a hotel room or the bathroom. There's a lot of stuff here which you can go through. The design guidance note. I'll put it in below the link for you to access to this guidance note, and this will assist in thinking through um, about your design, obviously. Now this is this is the thing that there's a lot of tables like this in this guidance note, like table 8. Yeah, there's not something mentioned about table 8 changing area requirement. So you have a lot of different facilities like cricket, gymnastic hall, tennis indoor, tennis outdoor, bowls indoor, bowls outdoor, you know, just different sport that disabled person could be involved with. 9-court sports hall or larger, 6-court sport hall. So here it says one unisex changing room and WC minimum, figure 16, for a 4-court sports hall and a 6-court sports hall and a 9-court one. You should have at least 2 for a fitness equipment room or multi-use games area. Is compulsory, is a required compulsory to have it. For a clubhouse, it's not compulsory. So mostly it's compulsory to have one unisex changing room. So as a designer, you could, because this guidance note will help you to think through the facilities in terms of what sports or hall or indoor area or whatever that they have, and whether your requirement is, whether the specification is required or not. And in some areas it's recommended additional provision, accessible changing room with the main changing area, figure 20. So you can refer to these figures and those things should have or not. So they have thought through how much, what facilities should be available in different considerations of it that you need to think about. Okay, so that's all for now, and I hope that this will help in your design. And thank you so much for listening. And I think just wanted to talk about changing room, but one day I hope to visit a really accessible sports complex and would really understand. As a non-athlete, that's my disadvantage. But as an athlete, disabled athlete, if you're a disabled athlete, you should tell us more about the requirements. And obviously, the designer need to actually understand the different process. And this guidance notes is actually a research document where they understood about the requirement. But in a cultural context, it's different. Maybe that's where the interpretation is needed. So thank you so much, and see you again sometime.